systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, a.k.a. ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the Wednesday Golf Show here on the SHIPIT Nation YouTube station. Got my guy Hoopster here with me, as always, going to break down all things this week for the Charles Schwab Challenge, talk a little bit of ownership, weather, breakdowns, roster construction, all this stuff as we go throughout. But appreciate everybody in here joining us. Razor Sharp, the sharpest one of the bunch, first in again. Shout out to Razor Sharp. So, a couple other ones, hottest intro music in the game. I like that. Chris finally making the live show. Appreciate you. Illini fan, what's up, SHIPIT Nation? So thank you guys for joining us. It was another huge week, another major down, another big week. A lot of big winners. Post them over on our X account at SHIPIT Nation. If you're not following over there, go check that out. We have a ton of giveaways throughout the year that you can get in on over there. And then here on the YouTube station, just subscribe, like, helps us out a ton. Even if you're just watching this on playback or replay, go in, click the like button, subscribe to the channel. Hoopster, bring you in, man. We got a lot to talk about here. Charles Schwab Challenge, but how you do, my friend? And how was the major for you? Xander Schauffele getting it done. We didn't get to talk about it on Monday for the first look this week.
Yeah, in terms of results, wasn't the greatest. One of those weeks on the right guys, not the right combinations. A little over the field on Xander, but I had a ton of Scotty, which he did fine. But when two high-priced guys are right there, like, you need that one that obviously wins it, and more than the guy that doesn't win it in Scotty. So it was fun to see him. Xander's a guy I like. I mean, we play him a ton in DFS. It was cool to see him get that win, he did go wire to wire and take it down. So seems like a good guy. Congratulations to him. And also congratulations to all the members that won, because it was another big week. Like you said, major week. Major wins over here at SHIPIT Nation, and it wasn't only on the main slate, the showdown stuff as well. You're really starting to see the SHIPIT Nation community separate ourselves in the showdown street. It is a strength of ours. The projections are very solid. Again, a lot of websites that you're signed up for, the projections remain the same. They don't do individual round. We have projections for each individual round, taking into account the tee times, the weather, all that stuff. So it's a very valuable tool. Have the stone for each round as well. So the showdown stuff is really taking off, and you can see the people that are kind of using everything, because the results are coming in consistent. They're winning consistently, and you absolutely love to see that. In terms of this week, a little bit of a weaker field, but we do have Scotty up top, and the numbers on Scotty in the sports books are just insane. Plus 280 to win, minus 140 to finish in the top 5, and I just looked, minus 275 to finish in the top 10. Just crazy sports book numbers for our boy Scotty, our jailbird Scotty, I guess you should say.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Scotty in a little bit here. I will say you hit on the point I was going to talk about, so we'll spend I call it the marketing minute. It's a lot longer than a minute, but just to go through it quickly, I do think it's worth it to show it off. A lot of people that don't know what we have going on at the Nation when it comes to that, or they're stuck in their ways with their current other sites, whatever it might be. If you just want to get in for free for the Showdown mini course, you can just go to shipitnation.com, put your email, sign up. You'll get the course, the mini course, where Hoop and I recorded and talked about Showdown. But just a note, Shiptimizer, which I'll show off in a second, does cover PGA Showdown. Doesn't have NBA or MLB Showdown just yet. That's in the plans for next season. But for PGA, because the Showdown slate is not captain mode that most people are playing. I know we have that. Our guy Ricardo, shout out to him, just crushes the captain Showdown slates, but we don't have that in there. But that's included when you sign up for a membership. You mentioned it. You get our projections, the stone, the slate plan, and it has been quite a difference, like you said, and just talking about what people are doing with it. Just to go over here for a second, if you haven't checked out the stone, first of all, this is an example from last week. I can't imagine going into a round 4 without having this at my disposal. So shout out to our guy, Degenerate75. It was awesome to see him back in the content streets last week on Wednesday. But just to go through it here, like when you have a round 4, that's what this is from last week, that has built in the projections, the ceiling, what their last round score was, what their ownership's going to be. We talked when we did the merger with Degenerate75 about being sweaty tryhards. These are not just projections. We're bouncing off the idea of the main slate. This is where are people going into the round? What's the weather, their tee times, all of that stuff that we adjust for. It has their tee time on here, their win equity, their top 5 percentage, good approach, true approach, which a lot of people don't have. This actually knocks out their best and worst of their strokes. So if they have one bad hole where it goes offline into the water 2 times and that kills their approach for the round, this will kick that out and say one bad hole, this is what their true approach actually looks like. And then their short game regression, bad round regression, and their round 4 historical numbers all in one place. And that's why, like Hoop said, you're seeing those logos atop those showdown leaderboards quite a bit. So that would definitely be something worth checking out. If you haven't checked out Shiptimizer, it is free for a limited time. So if you sign up for any membership monthly or more, $39 right now, you're watching a golf show, this would be the starting point for you. If you've been trying a ton of different things, if you're just looking for a more affordable, better value product out there that you can go and use, check it out. It's basically $1 a day for $39. You go in, you'll get the Discord access, you'll get those full education courses that we talked about. You get everything for the classic slate, everything for the showdown slate. So all of this stuff you're seeing here, our course fit rankings, everything's up early. So just want to make sure you guys check it out. If you want to get the annual, it's about $5 per event. And then right now for a limited time, you do get Shiptimizer for PGA as well. You'll see in here, it's got the round 1, the late round 1, the main slate. You can change the slate over. Down below, it's got everything from the name, salary, projected points. The ceiling is in there, the ownership. You can change it to your own. You can boost guys, change your exposures. In the build settings, we call it Shiptimizer, the optimizer designed to help you ship, because the community is working on it together to design this to be the best possible item as far as optimizers are out there. But you can change things. You can change it so that you have a certain amount of golfers under a certain percentage. So if you want 3 golfers under 10%, you can change that. You can turn up your randomness. You can change, go over to your player groups and set up your groups if you want to do it that way. So there's just a lot of different things. And then you'll be able to see your lineups in here as well. But definitely something worthwhile. If you just want to try it for a week, you don't get Shiptimizer and you don't get the Discord, but you will get the Stone and all of the rest. If you want to go up to the monthly, that's when you get to try out Shiptimizer right now, free for a limited time with a monthly or more plan. And then you also get the Discord access. And then Danny asked it, will the tiers be included? There is going to be a setting where cores will be easily selected and clicked. We may make it so that you can just put the tier rankings in or use that, or Hoops player pool.
I believe he's talking. He can clarify, but I believe he's talking about the tiers contests on DraftKings.
No, football tiers down the road. Maybe it's literally the only one DraftKings cares about. But you'll notice with our stuff, we're pretty open, pretty transparent when it comes to what we do. If it's small and it's niche, no. If it makes sense and it's 95% of our users will end up using it, more likely. But that is just a separate topic that I brought up, is we will be able to have it. So core reports, player pools, our tier rankings, whatever. Maybe
I will say, and just to add on to his point real quick about the tiers, we have dedicated content to the tiers contests on DK for NFL season. Our guy Marley does those. So there's not many other sites that have dedicated content to tiers, but we do. Our guy Marley has had a ton of success in the tiers contest and the tier streets. So he covers all our content for that. So you definitely, we have you covered there, but yeah, it won't be a part of the Shiptimizer though.
Yeah, and I promised I'd cover this in less than 10 minutes, so we'll move on in a second. But just to note, yeah, you showed it here. You mentioned here, I'll show it, the tiers, afternoon slate, and prime time. It'll be written coverage for this upcoming season, same as what we had for that last year, but we'll definitely have the written content from our guy Marley. Paul asks another question. This is another good note. Again, something we've been open and honest about. Again, it's free right now, so it's not like it's, you're paying for it or something, but just to note, I know some optimizers have it to do it right from the optimizer to that. Maybe long-term, that's something we'll do. But I can tell you from my own experience, and I play 150 very often and have for many years, I've never used that convenience feature. I get it. I know some love it and swear by it. I personally have never used it. I download my CSV and then I copy it over into the DK entries or whatever it is, .csv, and I re-upload that. So I get it. Yeah. But for others to mention it, convenience features will be behind the list of the features we said we're going to be adding up front. So just quick on that. NASCAR, MMA, Shiptimizer version, so 2 more full sports. NFL is already done for both Classic and Showdown. We worked the most on that already. And then the other thing is the lineup builder where you can do it. But yeah, as far as Rin asks, you can download the CSV and upload it, but there is no direction to say, I want these 20 lineups in that contest in this. The optimizers that do that are phenomenal. We're partnered with the Solver. They have an option for that. That's crazy. It's awesome. Crazy feature that most don't have. And I like it too. I don't use it, but I like that they have it. And the note on that would just be, that's what you pay for. That's why you pay more for these services in some cases. So I would just note that that's one thing to keep in mind. We're going to work to continue to improve and add on when it comes to ours. But right now, just getting to use it is huge. A lot of people that haven't used an optimizer before ever are loving it so far. So again, $14 for the week, no Shiptimizer, no Discord, $39 for the month. It's basically just over $1 a day to get everything covered. You do get Shiptimizer for PGA if you're PGA only, and then you also get the Discord access. Hoop, anything else you want to add? If not, we can move on to the Charles Schwab Challenge.
Ready to roll.
All right, let's do this, man. If you guys have any other questions, you can throw them in the chat as we go throughout. Talk about weather real quick off the top. I will say, Hoop, it is something this week more than normal, but it's Texas. As I talked about Mayo earlier today, it can change on a dime, right? So anything we're looking at right now can change by the morning. People always say, oh, they just say they're going to stack both sides and move on. No, it's not really the case. It's right now, I would tell you, I actually slightly like AM, PM a little bit more because right now I see Thursday. I know they're getting a ton of rain. It'll push over. It's probably lift, clean, in place. We'll wait and see. That'll all be in the Discord when we see it in the morning, whatever comes out. But just to note it, it looks like there's way less winds. The temps aren't that much, lighter than the afternoons. It's not like they're playing in cold. It's 73 Fahrenheit and it only gets up to 85 or 84. So it's not that crazy. But the winds from 12 o'clock on do look like gusts of 20 to 26 with 8 to 15 sustained versus in the morning is like no wind at all and better conditions. When you flip to Friday, it's 14 to 15 sustained in the morning winds with gusts of 23 to 33. And then around 1 o'clock, it dips to 6 to 14 sustained with a high of 18 when it comes to the gusts. So AM, PM does look pretty tasty right now, but that can change in a heartbeat or things can get pushed or different stuff can happen. So I will just say, Hoop, I'm fine with going both sides. I lean AM, PM. Scotty, by the way, is a PM, so you can play 5 AMs and a Scotty if you think he can battle through it. But any quick takes on the weather before we get to these tiers?
Playing the weather stuff this year has kind of been a bust for the most part. Like we haven't had many slates where there's been a distinct advantage based solely on weather. So this week I agree with you though. I mean, if doing anything, it would be the AM PM, but I'm going to kind of wait till a little bit later to kind of solidify what I'm going to do in terms of weather. And most likely it's just going to be not all in situation, but maybe prioritizing some guys that are on the good side. If on the fence with the guy, that might be enough to push me in or out on him, depending on whether he's AM, PM or PM, AM. So we'll see. But I'm seeing the same thing you are at this point. For now, it's more of a tiebreaker, and I'll make the final determinations on that, later this afternoon when I really go in and start building some teams.
Yeah, and I'll add 2 quick points. One, I'll say our guy Degenerate75 also always has done the research and back testing and seeing it. Obviously, for the quote-unquote scrubs, like when you get down to the cheaper guys, definitely think that's a great tiebreaker. It looks like they'll get great conditions Thursday morning, and hopefully they can just battle through in that Friday afternoon when it looks currently like it's better than Friday morning. But on the second note, I would say, to your point of it being a bust, there's been weeks where we've seen strict advantages. Like there's been like a stroke and a half advantage. What we haven't seen is where I've seen like a whole pool that someone went all in on it get a ton of 6s because of it. There's still been effects that have happened because of it. But to that point, that's why it can still be advantageous because there's weeks where, they're not getting, 50 or 60% 6-6 because the wave absolutely crushed and all the guys that they were on. They may still get a much higher 6-6 rate than the rest of the field. It just still needs to convert and do something. I don't remember a week. I think it was 1 week that I remember this year where it was like 10 of the top 8 or 18 of the top, whatever, or top 20 were from a certain wave. But then there was also all the outliers and stuff too, and all these other things. So just to note on that, there's definitely been opportunity where it came through. I think last week, even there was a slight advantage that got through, but just to note it, it's not been where you've sort of needed your whole pool to have that. I do want to answer Benet. Shout out to our guy, Kevin. He says, does Shiptimizer have tee times to be able to stack waves? 2 notes. 1, not yet officially, but that's high up on the list. That will be a priority before it comes out full launch to get that on there. Secondly, it's still very easy to do because when you just default all your exposure to 0, you can then go add in the guys you want, because you should be building your wave stack still with who you want from said wave. So you can add in your minimum exposure on the wave guys that you do want, or use the group setting to do it. So I just want to make sure that it's still very easy to do, especially in Showdown. It's been the way everyone's doing it. They're going in and doing the round 1, round 2, round 3, whatever, and they're just defaulting the exposure to 0, adding the extra stuff, and then being able to the extra stuff being the players from that wave, and then being able to just make sure they get only that wave, or inserting multiples from that wave. So any other weather stuff or anything else you want to talk about there, Hoop? If not, let's have the old Scotty Scheffler conversation here.
Yeah, I'm good with everything else. We can hop into Scotty and the upper tier, but the Scotty things, 13-3, 2,300 DraftKings dollars more than the next closest guy in Morikawa, who's been playing pretty well. The numbers are insane for Scotty in the sports books. Like I said, on DKs, like plus 275 to win a full field event, 132 golfers, whatever the hell it is. That's crazy. Minus 140 to finish in the top 10. So a pretty sizable, or top 5, pretty sizable favorite to finish in the top 5. And then minus 275, almost a 3-1 favorite to finish inside the top 10. So numbers are unheard of. I mean, just absolutely insane. But yeah, obviously he deserves to have those sort of numbers because of how well he's been playing. One bad round last week, I believe it was Saturday, where he shot 2 over. Besides that, he was great. And if he was just average on that day, if he shoots a 2 under, he's right there in contention probably to win the thing on Sunday. Still has the solid finish, finishes 8th with a shot of 73. Shot of 73 in round 3 when other guys were scoring. So took him completely out of contention. The guy is an absolute stud. This is a relatively weak field event. He's going to be owned. There's no doubt about it. So if you're playing him, I think, you make some pretty big stands. Maybe you sacrifice some other guys up top, but 13-3 for Scotty with the 5K range. And there's a lot of different ways you can go. The 5K guys, they're not great options. There's no doubt about that. But it's not necessarily the 5K guys. It's what it's doing to the rest of the field. It's bringing the price tags down on everyone, where 7K guys are now 6K guys, mid 7K guys are now upper 6K guys. So it brings the price down on everyone, makes it easy. If you plug Scotty in, you got a little over $7,300 left per spot. If you plug in a 6K guy, let's just go down, click a random name, a $6,300 guy, you're back up to $7,600, where there's some very reasonable guys in the mid 7s that we'll talk about later. So it's very easy to play him. He's going to be owned. And I'm considering making a pretty bold stance on Scotty this week. We'll see how it goes. I haven't built teams yet, so I don't really build until this usually Wednesday afternoon. So when we get off the show, I will take a look and see how much Scotty is reasonable, feasible, I guess. Like how much can I play him, what sort of rate. But he'll be a big part of what I do this week. There's no doubt about it. And again, it's a little bit different because there's a $2,300 difference. I mean, $2,300 between Scotty and Morikawa. So you start looking at 2v2s. If you can sell yourself on Morikawa over Scotty, it's crazy. The 2v2s, like the next guy in or whatever, however you want to look at it. But yeah, Scotty is definitely a priority. He could just absolutely dust this field this week.
Yeah, Spieth with the course history here is one thing, but I'll just use him as the example. Like 43rd, 29th, miscut, 39th, miscut, 10th versus Scotty. Win, 2nd, 8th, whatever it is. Like this is not even close. And I know there's the price gap that you get, but I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent and people can argue it in the chat. Like the price is wrong on Scotty. They just won't let it go any higher. Like it doesn't make any sense. He's $100 more than he was at a major last week with an absolutely stacked field and a 5K range. This is not even close to that field strength with nobody around him. Like Morikawa, maybe, and you can make a case because he has been playing better. But Spieth, Homa, Finau, Minwoo Lee, Siwoo Kim, Harman, Im, Hoagie, Scott, like who are we talking about? So when people are like, oh, but the ownership, or oh, but the guys around, or like, he has to win for that price. He should be $15,000 here in this field. Yeah. They're just not going to do that. They literally could make him 15 and really force you to think about it. I know they're not going to do it. And people don't love that when I say it, they argue it, but they're saying he's the right price makes 0 sense. He's a bigger favorite in a much weaker field with nobody around him. He's not surrounded by certified killers. He doesn't have all the dudes. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And so people are then going to say, oh, but the ownership game, he's going to be 35 or 38% owned. It's fine, because if those other dudes around him don't come through, unless you plan on building all these super balanced builds, make sure you do that if you're fading him, because that's what it's going to end up being. So that's what I would say, like some sort of setup off of that. Otherwise, there's going to be very good players this week that lock Scotty. I don't lock guys, but that'll go into my second point of, as heavy as I am on him, just to note it. Like, that's the other thing. If you say he's 36, you want to tell me, no, you're still wrong. He's 40. Okay. Now do this. Go see in your mind and your math how many of those lineups of the 40% are terrible, terrible builds for large field tournaments. They're going to have the same, Putnam, Svensson, Hubbard, McNeely. And I'm not shitting on those guys. I'm playing them too. And in a high stakes, small dollar.
Those are all my boys, man. Take it easy.
Opposite trains this week. That's not my take, though. I like those guys too in different ways. I'm just saying when people have their Scotty builds, they're going to rotate through all those. So 40% Scotty is like 30% Scotty, because there's a large majority of those builds that are terrible, have zero chance out of the gates, unless the chalk absolutely smashes, and then you still put yourself in a weaker position just to tie with everybody. So that's my Scotty rant. It's just not even close. And it's nice they put a gap to Morikawa of $2,300, but it's not really as required as you think when you see the guys in the 6K range are just your normal dudes. They still have a 5K range where they threw all the quote unquote trash or scrubs down to the bottom. So you don't need the 5K range to play Scotty. He's very easy to get to. Even if he's 35%, 40, like 38, 37, whatever, it still matters what everyone else around him does. And you're counting on a lot of other dudes that we have not seen anywhere near this type of stuff that Scotty's got. So I get it.
Yeah, and to add on to the last point that you just made, which is very important, last week, similar price tag for Scotty, but you knew if he didn't get all the way up there, you're probably in trouble, because one of those other high-priced guys was probably going to get the job done, and that's exactly what happened last week. Scotty didn't get all the way there. He finished 8th, but the guy that won was another expensive golfer in Xander Schauffele, who is the third most expensive guy in the slate. This week, you can view it a little differently, because Scotty finishing 8th, Scotty even finishing 10th, he can still be the guy that you absolutely need, because there's a very high likelihood that the other guys around him in this pricing spectrum do not get it done. Yeah, you can make the case for some of these guys, but last week you knew most likely if Scotty didn't get it done, it was going to be one of those other killers, whether it was Xander or Rory or someone like that. This week, the guys around him are very, very fragile, so it needs to be viewed a little bit differently.
Yeah, definitely that. And, just the overall setup of it is, like you said last week too, there's fit 20 guys in between 8,500 and behind Scotty that are just much better than are at this field. And that's where at like US Opens and majors in general that aren't the Masters, where it's a shorter field, smaller field, it's set up where you can actually have a high price golfer like that be in the mix and still not get the job done because the other stuff all gathers around him. US Open's the best example. It's a really tough track. If the punts are what they are, 2 or 3 of them usually bust, and then that balanced build can become really handy, even if a guy at 13-3 wins. This week, not so much the case. I'm fine with it either way. Like I said, I think a lot of people are going to be heavy on him. That's what's going to lead to it. But we can move on. Of the other guys, where are you at with, let's do 9,500 and up. Let's do Brian Harman up to Morikawa, who are a couple guys that stand out there for you.
Yeah, the Morikawa thing is somewhat interesting. He's been playing really, really well. You look at it, he's turned it around. I mean, 3rd at the Masters, 9th at the RBC, 16th at the Wells Fargo, then 4th at the PGA. Kind of, crapped the bed there a little bit in round 4, but he's been playing incredibly well. The course should set up fairly good for his game, I think. But if you're playing him, you're sacrificing some Scotty Scheffler lineups. Like, there's no doubt about it, because it's going to obviously very difficult to play both those guys. If you do, you're sitting at 6,400, and that might fit into the category of some of those dead teams that you were talking about, some of those dead Scotty teams. So in my eyes, for every Morikawa team you build, you're sacrificing one share of Scotty Scheffler. So that's a tough decision for me. But I do like playing guys that are on heaters like this. Morikawa has been phenomenal. So again, when I go and build teams, this will all be reflected in my personal player pool at shipitnation.com. I'll have basically my exact exposures within 5 to 8% of what I'm doing across the industry. I got to see with Morikawa. Spieth is an easy fade for me. I have zero interest in him this week. And then Homa at 10-4. He's a little bit cheaper than Morikawa. I think the Scotty Scheffler Homa teams are a little more realistic than the Scotty Scheffler Morikawa team. So I have some moderate interest. But again, I'm not, my approach this week, I'm not sacrificing Scotty Scheffler teams for any of these guys. So I have to see how it goes when I get to roster construction. It's Scheffler, obviously, by a very, very wide margin, priority-wise for me, and then probably Homa, and then probably Morikawa. But I could scrap these guys at any point and potentially just go all in on Scheffler like you talked about. I got to see how it all looks when I build my teams this afternoon. Again, it'll all be reflected in my player pool at shipitnation.com.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point there too, because that's the other thing. I think, I mentioned, like, if you want to go off of Scotty, I do like, instead of just going to the easy, obvious pivot of like a Morikawa lineup, you could start with someone who's less popular. Maybe it's like a Homa or Siwoo or something like that. Or you could just go really balanced and drop down. But one note you made there that I think is super interesting is I think a lot of people are choosing Scotty or Kawa or Scotty or Homa or where do I start? And it's like, you're allowed to play too. So if you go Scotty Homa, for example, to your point that you brought up, you do twofold. Not only do you make your Homa lineups and Scotty, however you want to look at it, frame it up, definitely your Scotty lineups differently because you have another stud in there. Most people will be starting with Homa, so you're stacking Scheffler on top. And then lastly, you just can't land in that range of what we talked about. You just can't land on all those same $7,700, $7,800 guys at that point. So you're going to have a naturally different build down at the bottom as well. So I don't hate doing that. Homa, Siwoo, Harman, sort of the other guys that stood out for me. And then I like Kawa and Scheffler up top. So we can move on. Let's go to my guy, Sungjae Im. Let's do him down to Justin Rose. We'll do 85 to 94 just because 6s and 5s will get kind of blended at the bottom. So Justin Rose, 8,500 hoop, up to Sungjae Im. And do you have any keeper cuts?
Yeah, it's funny you said that. Yeah, first one pops up in this range. Sungjae Im at 9-4, we thought he was getting that momentum back. He had the win, I believe, on the World Tour, the 4th at the Wells Fargo, 12th at the RBC, and then sucked pretty badly at the PGA Championship. I have no read. Again, that's your part of the show to give us the Sungjae takes, because I just have zero read on him. Very interested in Hoagie. Harris English, I think, is a very strong option. Harris English has been low-key very, very good. What is it? 8 out of his last 9 events have resulted in a T34 or better, and he's playing in some of these strong field events: PGA Championship, Masters, Wells Fargo, the Players, Arnold Palmer, Genesis. He's playing in the big boy events and turning out solid finishes. So I think he is a very interesting play. Seabads I want to get back on. I never play Billy Horschel. I don't care. I know he is actually going to get some ownership this week. I know people are excited to be on him. He's one of those guys I just physically cannot click the name, so I'm not going to do it. The keeper cut in this range, though, is Adam Scott. I think he's been a keeper cut option a few times. Again, it's the same thing. Like T30 appears to be the ceiling. Missed the cut last week. No clue what to do with Adam Scott.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to be in. So I'll be keeping Adam Scott. I like my guy Sungjae. Bounce back after last week. The English one I think is funny because people are really struggling with it. Our Discord really against him just because it's $9K for Harris English. And again, people look at all the 18th, the 22nd, the 19th, the 21st, and say this guy's
playing all the big boy events. He's playing all the strong field events.
So what is interesting about it is Harris English is kind of the guy that fits the keeper cut mold of what I always say about Adam Scott. It's kind of flipped to Harris English. Everyone's going to say, if you want an 18th or a 21st, play him, but it's not going to cut it because he's $9K. If he was 8,900, you might hear a different tune too. But also, just to say it, the Best Buy pricing, he's a little bit more expensive. He's not 8,900 at Best Buy pricing. He's $9K. I think there's that. But it's like you said, it's now he goes into a field that's much easier than what he's been playing against. So maybe that comes through as well. And so having him in there, he can be your third golfer in if you're fading Scotty. Like you could fade Scotty. And I mean, you could still probably get there. But if you fade Scotty, you could definitely make him your third guy in. So I think he's interesting as well.
You've been overruled.
It looks like everyone wants to cut Scott.
Yeah, everyone wants to cut his ass. I think you might be the only keep.
Yeah, he's a tough click this week for sure. So I don't hate it, but
yeah.
overpriced. I mean, everyone says everyone's overpriced until they're not. So it's like, that's the difference. And again, the field strength definitely matters. But with Scott, it's almost like, I think that's why people are just going to English, because English is, I mean, here's the interesting note with this English. He played here last year and got 12th. So that's the only course history thing you could say about him. Before that, he didn't even play it the 2 years before that. It's similar to Scott, hasn't played it in forever. But then look at this. 18th, 34th, 28th, 22nd for Harris English, the last four. But last week, 18th. But then you take out last week's missed cut for Adam Scott, and it's 29th, 30th, 22nd, and 14th. It's actually the exact same finishes or better in 4 of his last 5 as Harris English. But because Harris English's missed cut was event 5 ago, and it flips for Adam Scott, now it's like Harris English and Adam Scott sucks. They've been the same dude outside of one event last week. But if you go back to the 5th event for English, it was the one where Adam Scott came 14th. And so that's the way I'm telling people. They never look at that, though. It's only like last week is everything. So Adam Scott, he's fine. I'm good with it. How I would validate it. Billy Horschel, playing some good golf. I know you didn't like him. We're going to be on a lot of opposites. I didn't talk about this off the top. So before we go to the 8,400 and down range, I will say big time leverage week. I know you could say this every week in golf and what it's at. Like, this is the thing. It's major hangover. It's content hangover. Scotty Scheffler going to jail, Rory getting divorced, all these different things. Like, people are just a little fatigued, and it definitely shows when you look at the ownership. We'll have the stone out tonight with all the final ownership and everything there, but it is going to be very condensed in these certain ranges where you know exactly where it's going and what type of roster constructions that leads to.
I will say though, man, like your quote tweet, if those rumors are true, like, man, like he really risked it all for what's her name, Amanda Bellianos. I mean, come on, is that legit?
I don't know. The New York Post always jumps on stuff early. There was a caddy last week, like some caddy somewhere that's like, it's all the talk, deleted his tweets after. So someone's like, oh, they must have people screenshotted them. And he had it about like her not wearing the ring and, changing her name back, and then Rory and her being close. And then the one most interesting nugget, I think at least, was that when Rory won on Mother's Day, it wasn't announced yet that he was divorced, yet Amanda knew. Like, do you think he said to her, like, hey, by the way, I just got divorced. It's going to come out next week. Don't ask about my wife. Instead, they focused on his dad and his mom and how he's more like his dad, but he loves.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. She might have had a little more information. I think it's legit, but man, like, she must be doing something good over there, because man, that's like, I figured, if you're going to risk it all, like, I don't think that's the answer.
The other thing is, people said she has got hotter. Like they said, Amanda's been picking up.
She's not terrible, but I mean, she's not terrible. But again, if it's like you're the number 2 golfer in the world, I'm assuming if you're getting back in the streets, you can get probably whatever the hell you want, like whatever you want.
No, good note, Super Hua. Shout out to you, always supporting. Says quality breakdown is insane for free. Imagine being a member. We always say that if you like our free stuff, you'll obviously love the paid stuff. But what we do, like 95% is free anyway. It's all a freemium setup, where the key of the Discord, I think people do talk about this all the time, just to do a quick 2 seconds on it. But like, Hoop and I have had success in DFS. It's already happened. It's going to happen. We're going to continue to focus on it, try and find more wins along the way. I think every site has people that win at DFS. I don't know, like, people want their roto trackers awesome. I had my best NFL season just this past NFL year. Golf almost won the Millie back at the Genesis. Like, there's lots of good success out there, but that's not actually what you should be signing up for. It's a community-based system where you're surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals, where it means you can ask questions you don't know the answer to. You can learn and see what other people are talking about and typing, and pick up on little things along the way, so that you can hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls and mistakes that we've made along the way. There's education courses if you want to quietly go get better at your DFS game and just focus on it yourself. You can literally do anything you want, but you should not be signing up to get Hoop and Tambo's plays. That's an added bonus and a benefit that it gives you a guideline. There's definitely things like I read from the internet. That's where the tidbits started at. I take in everything to try and pick up as much information as possible. You should do the same, but don't just come and copy it. Take it, learn from it, and then put your own spin on it. That's how we've had people win the millions and hop on and say, yeah, I used your stuff and looked at this, but then I put my own spin on it and I landed on that, and boom, there you go, won the millie. Like, we've had these interviews. So definitely should check out SHIPIT Nation, but not for the reasons you think that others will talk about. It's not just about us picking plays. It's about the process, getting better at your game. But yeah, back to it, Hoop. I thought it was funny. The first thing that came to mind was Rory needs a green jacket so bad. The way Happy Gilmore, which by the way, Rory has dressed up as Happy Gilmore before too, in the past for a Halloween thing, is he said, fuck it, I'm going to go get my green jacket. Here's how you do it. And he grabs the reporter, the PR type thing, and goes and does it. Maybe that's to get his jacket.
That could be the move. Yeah.
Could be the play. All right, let's keep it rolling. It is like Paul said, it's insane that we've been talking about, some of the, for a DFS sport, and the conversation has been divorce, affairs, jail.
They're the most well-behaved athletes, like in general. Like you see, the NBA players, the MLB players, NFL players, like you see the craziest stories. So like some of this stuff, it's second nature in those other sports. In golf, these are like the good boys.
Yeah, also this standard thing. I don't understand that one, but just end it and move on. But either way, who knows what actually happens on the tour? We'll probably never know. So let's move on. Let's get back to golf. And we start with your boy, Chris Kirky, 8,400. Got to get your take on him. Sepp Straka seems to be getting a little bit of love here. And then all the way down, let's go to 7,600 and up, where you can talk about guys you love like Mav McNeely, Mark Hubbard, all your favorites. But talk about this range.
My boys. This is a tough one for me because, man, it has all my boys. Like all my boys are in this range, and very difficult for me to find fades in here. So I'm going to have to, again, when I go to build teams, it'll get a little interesting because obviously I like Kirk. Sepp Straka been playing well. Had he missed a cut last week, but prior to that, very solid. I think he could definitely bounce back at this event. Tom Kim, quietly, I mean, it's been up and down a little bit. We haven't seen like a great finish, but he's making cuts. 26 last week at the PGA. I think this course could fit him well. Keegan, as I said on the Monday show, the most disrespectful price tag on the slate goes to Keegan, 81. I think he could easily be, closer to that 9K range. 3 out of his last 4 has been, top 22 or something or better. Dietrich's been playing well. Batia's a guy, we always kind of talk about just like being on him because when he's on, he has the chance to win. And at 7,900, you want that. Taylor Moore continues his solid play, bounced back with a T12 last week. Aaron Rye. Berger is the one that's kind of interesting to me, not too sure what to do with him. But Hubbard, McNeely, Poston, it's like all my guys, all my favorite guys to play week to week are in this range. One that I don't like playing week to week and I'll be fading is definitely Ricky Fowler at 7,600. Davis Thompson I've been on a little bit, and then Eckroat, Glover. So this is a range, when I go build teams, I might have to make some cuts, but it's going to be really difficult. And he is a keeper cut. Yeah, Daniel Berger was the keeper cut in this range. So it's kind of weird because I like everyone else, so he's probably going to end up being a cut, but it's a very strong range for me and one that very difficult for me to find some fades.
Yeah, I like the a couple of calls there they had, and some of the guys you usually like that weren't just you mentioned them, but like I think with Hubbard, McNeely, some of the other guys up top there, Kirky, all them, there is some range that you can go to there with like Bhatia or Taylor Moore or those guys that we've kind of been on lately anyway. But just a note real quick, back to the just overall 8K range, since we're talking about the bottom of it, it's very similar, besides maybe Straka and maybe McCarthy, to what we saw at the PGA Championship. Remember last week, it was like, oh, Fleetwood's going to get boosted and pumped up, and this guy's going to get pumped up, and then they all came in much lower than expected, and the 8K just went completely overlooked. If you want to get different with some Scotty lineups this week, play some of these 8K guys in with it, and then skip this upper 7K range altogether, even though you may love the plays in here, but like when we get to 75, you got Glover, Eckroat, McNeely, Hubbard, Rye, Bhatia, all these guys. If you just skip over that pocket of players, I think that's a way that you can get unique as well. And if, like you said, if a guy like Keegan Bradley's being disrespected at 8,100, like he easily, like you said, could be 8,200. He's 8,100 though. You could easily see him being $100 more. But just to note, you definitely are still getting him at a discount to a guy on ownership wise, at least to me, when it comes to guys like McNeely and Hubbard and Glover and all that. And yeah, you pay $600 more for it. You just got to find that somewhere else. And I think down below is just not going to be that much of a difference between a $6,600 and a $7,200 guy that you'll be able to find your way around, or 64 and 7K or anything like that where you can go find it. So looks like Berger also a cut. I had a conversation with him with Mayo today, and I don't know, how many we got him into, but he'll definitely be on a few lineups there. I don't know. It's a tough play, but course fit rankings over at SHIPIT Nation. Just a quick spoiler. Definitely have some interest in Daniel Berger. He's really squeezed if, he's an actual Berger in this case, because he's in between the buns. He's got McNeely below, he's got Hubbard below, and then he's got Rye and Bhatia above. So he's just sort of right in the middle there. So I definitely think Berger is in play because of that reason, but obviously the odds wise and things like that, tougher click than some of the others. I like Kirk. I like Tom Kim. I like Bradley, in that 8K range. And then in this upper sevens, JT Poston would be another guy that I would have interest in. I just don't see a lot of difference between Poston and some of the guys above when, again, what everyone else will see is, but he missed the cut here 3 years in a row. Don't even care. Like before the missed cut last week, it was made cuts. And while the finishes weren't great, there was a 5th thrown in there. There was a 30th. We know what he's capable of. I'm fine with him at 7,600 in this field. And then there's other guys coming up in the low sevens as well. Anybody else you want to talk about there? If not, let's talk about, 7,500 down to 7K. Let's get these 18 golfers that we're going to talk about.
The reason I feel pretty good about playing the guys in the previous range is because there's just going to be a lot of cuts for me when I get down here. I think there's a substantial drop off after that mid 7 range down to like the lower 7s. There's just not much for me. I'll name a few guys I have interest in. Always have interest in Shank, but he's been playing so poorly lately, really letting us down. No, actually, what? Who was I thinking of? All right.
Shank,
well, miscut 64.
Great though, and Shank came second here last year. So all those things mentioned, yet no one seems to be playing him this week.
Yeah. So for some reason I thought he had missed like 3 cuts in a row, and that's not the case. Just 1 and a 64th. But I always kind of like Shank. Obviously, Putnam at 74, I think makes sense. Lee Hodges continues to play well. Had the good finish last week at 72. Rio at 71. My boy Bobby Mack, is he back? That's the big question for me this week. Is Bobby Mack back? 8th at the PGA Championship, 13th at the Myrtle Beach Classic, which is obviously probably the shittiest field of the year. But, man, Mack was so good last year and treated us very well. I mean, made a lot of money in the community off Bobby Mack. Is he back? That's the question this week. And for me, I think he's getting back into my lineups.
I think his name is Big Track Bobby Mack. I think we need to play him at these big boy events, longer courses. That's when he's shown up at the majors and stuff like that. I don't know about here, but if you like him,
he's like 1 to 2% owned. I got to, in 150, I got to take a shot on our boy Bobby Mack. So he'll be back in my 150 lineups. Brendan Todd 7K, but again, to me, big drop off, like big drop off from upper 7s down to lower 7s. I'll have much less of these guys at much lower ownership as well.
Yeah, I just find this range is so much of what have you done for me lately, yet people aren't even counting what people have done for them lately. So it's like because of just last week. Well, Cam Davis, 21st, 12th, and 38th in 3 of his last 4, that's fine at 7,300, yet no one really wants to go there. Yeah. You go to Ryan Fox, a 4th place just before this event. It's a similar field strength, at least that he got it in. You'll see that. Shank, you talked about it. Nobody wants your boy, yet miscut in 64th. That's why. But if people are saying, what about last year? Well, he came second. What about before those 2 events? 13th, 5th, 12th? Like, these are solid finishes from these guys. Who else down here? There was another guy, too. Grayson Sig, usually popular. 9th, 13th, and then 8th at the team event. Who cares? But still in the mix nonetheless. There's guys down here that nobody really wants. Brendan Todd fits the course. Rio, who you talked about. I know he has like I don't know what the circumstances are. There was some tweet about him the other day. I forget what it was, but he's got a 13th and an 18th.
Was he the one that went back to Japan and then came back? Did he go to Japan for a qualifier thing or something?
Yeah, that's what it was. It was, I think he went, or he played there and then went and then flew back for the U.S. Open qualifier and then missed that. Yeah. So whatever. My point more so being, it's just like all the guys at the bottom 7K range, besides maybe a little bit on Lee Hodges, not many are talking about any of them. And someone said earlier, like when you fade Scotty, our guy Super again, your builds are strong. They're strong without. You don't have to fade them. You just like literally everybody that's on the $270-$700 guys, you can just drop one of them down to 71 and take one of them up to the 8K guy that you like in the range where no one's really on, like Kirk, Mitchell, McCarthy, Horschel, whoever it might be. You still don't hit the English and the Hoagies and the other popular plays that you may not love up above. and you land on guys that are still great builds with a Scotty build. And honestly, maybe your winner ends up being the 8K guy, but Scotty dominates the top crowd by coming in 7th or something, and the rest don't even show up. Some miss the cut, whatever it might be. So lots of different ways you can go about it, but I do think the low 7s has some options. 6s, let's talk about it, Hoop. There's definitely some options, but again, I just don't think you need to spend as much time in the 6s and 5s this week. I'll talk more on it in a minute, but give us your guys in the 6K range that you like.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's continues to fall off a cliff in terms of guys that I'll be interested in. Way more fades, obviously, down here than plays. I'll name a few guys that I have interest in. S.E. Kim, 6,700. He's a guy that can kind of just show up and play well and, get into contention when he is playing well. Had the 4th at the, CJ Cup. That's probably a pretty similar type field. The 14th at the Texas Open, continues to make cuts, which is important when you're, looking at some of these guys down here in the 6K range. So very interested in him. Coming down a little bit more, my guy Svensson at 64. Kind of rounding back into form. He's made, it looks like 6 cuts in a row. None of these finishes have been good. I mean, he hasn't had a finish better than 43rd, but he's played in some tougher events like the PGA Championship and the Wells Fargo. I think he can get us something here. So 6,400, Svensson interested in. Justin Lauer, 64. Novak, 6,300. Campillo, 6,200. I think is a guy that we can play. Carson Young, if you want to throw some darts, but man, it's a rough range. I don't see myself playing more than 5 or 6 of these guys down here.
Yeah, some interesting notes like Smalley, 40th and 27th here the last 2 years. He has a 20th, a 13th, and a 6th in 3 of his last 5. Missed the cut last week. Wow. It's a tough event. Like it's not even close to the same. So there's that. You go down to some of these other guys here. Michael Kim, a 14th, the 20th, 6th here last year. Like you're not hearing anybody talk about any of these guys. The one thing about Svensson, I might have too much conviction on him right now because I know you like him. Other people like him, 64. I actually think he is going to get steamed up more than I would love. So like higher stakes, smaller field where, maybe the made cut that he's probably going to get you is enough. But I do think we need to see something out of him here. He's capable. You mentioned it. These top 50s are in big boy events. He can take it on here and find a way. But there is other guys. Lauer, who you mentioned, Novak, Chan Kim. You go down to Campillo, 18th, 24th, and 4th. You go to Kevin Tway, 3rd and a 9th with the 11th at the team event, 43rd at a similar event. These guys are more boom bust, maybe, but realistically, like Tway still made all those cuts, had some good finishes in the same tournaments that Svensson played in, and then still had the same type of 43rd place or whatever in the other one. So my boy Mac Meisner, 26th, 23rd, 10th, 13th, and then a 23rd at the team event. Who cares? But the other stuff, pretty good. Like, I'll take some shots. Riley is a guy down there, I think. But, man, I don't know, if you have to get too crazy. And that's kind of my point. So I'm not going to go nuts down here. I'm going to pick my spots, play my guys, and move on. And the 5K range, I don't see really anybody getting ownership at all. And so, therefore, it's even if you do go hard on someone, you almost need them to, really, really perform to make a difference, because I don't know what else you're using it for. But anybody in the 5K range that you're in love with or that stands out, or are you kind of just putting them because you got to mention them for tier rankings or something? Like, that's my thoughts on it. We're going to play them in some, but not enough.
Nothing I love, definitely nothing I love, but, a couple guys that I'll include in the 150 stuff. Davis Riley, you kind of mentioned him. Mesner at 5,900. Ben Coles at 57. These aren't like guys I'm playing at a high rate by any means. Robbie Shelton, 55. Troy Merritt, 54. These are guys that I'll include and not even necessarily play. I mean, we'll see when I go and build my teams, but these are guys I'll include in the pool. If I need them in order to get the right amount of Scotty, that's how they'll be deployed in my lineups. But, nothing stands out as like an elite play down here by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think there is merit to playing my guy Troy this week, so you could go down to him at 5,400. He does kind of fit the flow chart. I don't know yet because we talked about that weather earlier. There's also been like conflicting reports from players at the course. Like I think Hoagie said he thinks it's going to play harder, and then I think it was Kim who said he thinks it's going to play easier than usual. So I guess really comes down to how you see the course playing out. But I think if you go back and look here, just let me have a quick glance. Where's my guy, Troy Merritt at? He's got an AM, PM tee time, and so does your boy Stanger. So we might have to get a little Troy Merritt.
Stanger is the one I was thinking of. Who did I talk about earlier? Oh, Shank. When I said he's missed 3 cuts in a row, it's Stanger that's missed the 3 in a row. You reminded me. 54. Yeah, it's been – or not 3 in a row. He's missed 4 out of 5. So, just as bad. Man, I don't know.
When he doesn't miss the cut, 23rd, 35th, 6th, 35th.
Yeah, you're trying to draw me back in. I see what you're doing there. I
Don't
don't know if I'm taking the bait.
This guy hates kids. Don't play Ben Martin. We don't have any good luck playing guys that hate kids. So, who talked about it? Justin Thomas. We've seen that.
He ruined his career, Justin Thomas.
Just based off that alone.
Hating kids.
Ben Martin. People have been – I heard him mentioned a couple times.
58.
He's definitely not getting ownership, but just to note it, he is
59. Sorry, 59.
Why can't I find him? Okay,
59. 5.9.
I don't know why people would want him. Like miscut, 55th, 48th.
Yeah, he's showing up on what is he? He's showing up on something that we have. I know that because I saw the name. It's not really giving much away when you're talking about Ben Martin, but I saw him on a piece of content that we have, and I believe it is.
No, couldn't be.
It's on there somewhere. I think it's something that Lee has. It's one of Lee's. It's one of Lee's pieces for sure. It's.
You know what? I bet you Lee likes him in the value report. Let's see this.
Let me pull it up here.
You guys know we'll take a shot at our guy Lee here right quick. He does so much good for us.
Yeah, he's got him. He's got him in there.
6 of 7 cuts.
But has the wrong price tag. Now it's the right price tag.
You know what it is though, because the team event gets booted out. So it is 6 of 7 made cuts. 7th at the Valero, 35th in the course sit. I mean, he's got to put someone down there. We got to say that. Shout out to our guy Lee, does incredible stuff over here. But I can't get behind the Ben Martin guy there. So, the other guys, he did mention Zach Johnson. I don't love this guy either, but he would be a guy, in the chat just asked about him too. 20th. He's done well at this course in the past for that price tag, like 23rd, 32nd, 40th. Like these are okay finishes for his price tag and would be a pivot off of Cole's. Because if anyone gets to like 5% down there, it's probably Cole's, but it just doesn't matter. You could still play that so easily and get away with it. But my point will always stand. Commit to whatever you're doing down here, because someone will say there's going to be someone, Chandler Phillips, Zach Blair, Neesmith, Robbie Shelton. All these guys can pop for any given slate, but it's like, if you get them, you probably have 2 to 5% of them. You got them in all the wrong places. Let's say you got them with Scotty and you don't have the rest right, and Scotty goes off and they go off, you still don't have it. If you don't have them with Scotty and Scotty goes off, you're out then. It's like if Scotty doesn't go off, and then you're really needing to get this punt play right, plus pick the right non-Scotty guys up the gut. Like that's kind of why it becomes just a waste of your time. And we talk about that more in the education course. We talk about that more in the Discord and everything over at SHIPIT Nation. Hoop, anything else you want to add for this slate? It's a lot of good prize pools. The last chance to get into the Fantasy Golf World Championship. There's going to be tons of good showdown slates because I think they're going to link it to that. There's going to be weather opportunities for us in showdown, and there's going to be the final Fantasy Golf World Championship satellite. So is there anything else you've got to add here before we get out of here?
Most of our content's already up on the site, and the last couple things will be added, relatively soon. We'd like to get our stuff up early so our members can digest it, ask any questions if they have, start building their own team. So just about everything's up, ready to roll, and looking forward to another week of PGA DFS and those SHIPIT Nation logos at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, if nothing else, go to the site, get the free PGA DFS Showdown mini course, because there is a big week of Showdown coming up, like we said. And then on top of it, there's going to be a lot of good things coming up with these other events. We got my hometown RBC Canadian Open. So my home country, I should say, not hometown, Canadian Open, which I'm excited for that next week. Then we got the Memorial. Then we got other majors coming up. So there's going to be a lot of good stuff popping up. So, get over there now. Check out shipitnation.com. As I said before, get the monthly. It basically works out to $1 a day. If you want to change it later to all access, to the annual plan, and save more money, you can always prorate and upgrade. You'll never pay more on top or have to wait or anything like that. You can change at any time. If you like what you see, you can hop in and start getting MMA and NASCAR, the NBA Showdown stuff with the playoffs right now, MLB stuff. We got a show Coming up next, our guys are going to be on the MLB show right here on this channel. So lots of good stuff. We got the Stone for MLB now. We got all of our other stuff over there. So check that out. Make sure you do. And then, of course, I'll mention it again, just going over to it, but getting the Stone for Showdown. If you're wondering why a lot of our screenshots that we're posting out and the logos are up there and a lot of them are related to Showdown, it's because of this very tool. And for $1 a day, even if this is all you use, this is going to be the way to go. So go check it out, shipitnation.com. We appreciate all your support. We appreciate everybody watching. Good luck this week at the Charles Schwab Challenge for Hoop. And for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it.